So tonight is the last week of this semester. So we're going to go ahead and take a break after tonight because, as you know, next week we're going to be rolling into Thanksgiving, and then it's going to be Christmas, and we're all going to be crazy busy. So tonight is our last gathering for a few months. So I'm so happy that you guys could make it. I hope that you've enjoyed this past 6 weeks as we've been talking about this idea of speaking life and being women who speak life. I hope that you've learned maybe one thing, even if you learned one thing that can come back into your mind in the months and years to come. I think that's worth it. Or even if you met one new person, you met one new friend who you can talk to on the weekend when you come to church, or meet with them outside of church, I think that it would totally be worth it if that's what happened. So tonight, we're going to be talking all about encouragement. And so we're going to end on a nice positive note. But since we're talking about encouragement tonight, I just wanted to start by encouraging you guys because you're here and that's amazing. You could be anywhere else right now. You could just be at home in your pajamas watching Netflix, which sounds really good tonight. It's the perfect night to do so, but you are not, and you are here. So that is really cool. I think that if we are honest, we could all say, there's times when you're coming to something, like you're coming to a church meeting, you're coming to church on the weekend, and you don't feel like going. And if you never feel that way, tell me, and I'll put you in charge of something. But if we're honest, all of us feel that way, right? There's just days where you're I just don't want to go. But I found that in those days that you want to go the least is actually when you need to go the most. You need to push through because God has something that he wants to say to you. God has a special word for you those days, and the enemy is trying to keep you away. So whenever you don't really feel like going, always push yourself to go and make it anyway. So if you've been here a few times, if you've been here all of the 6 weeks, that's awesome. You're doing awesome. I think you're doing better than you think you are. And I think that a lot of times in our faith, we think, I have so much further to go. I wish I wasn't struggling with this. I wish I was better at this. I can't believe I can't get this sorted out already. But sometimes you just have to stop and think how far you've come. Realize, man, but I have changed. I am different. I am making progress. And you're here. You're trying to learn. You're trying to connect with other women. So I think that you're doing awesome. And I just think that it's great that you guys are all here tonight. So tonight is our last night. And we have been talking all about speaking life in this last few weeks. We've talked about how we should be women who speak the gospel. We talked about how we should speak truth, how we can speak wisdom, how we can speak praise. And so tonight, my goal is to make this the most practical of them all. And we're going to be talking about how we can speak encouragement. Now, encouragement is a little bit tricky to nail down a definition for. Now, the actual word means it's the words in and courage put together. So it does literally mean to put courage into someone. But then if you look at the definition, the dictionary definition of the word encouragement, this is what it says: to inspire with courage, spirit, or hope. Now, if you look up in the Bible, all the verses about encouragement and what that original word means, there's a lot of different things. So encouragement is kind of just this blanket word over a bunch of things. So when I talk about encouragement tonight, these are some things I'm talking about. Encouraging words, positive words, helpful words, kind words. So encouragement is just kind of this blanket term over all these things. So I don't know if you would describe yourself as an encouraging person, or if you think of yourself as an encouraging person. But I do know that we should all desire to be an encouraging person. That's what Paul tells us in the Bible. So I want to start off by reading you this passage. It's in 1 Corinthians 14. And this is Paul talking, and it comes right after 1 Corinthians 13, which is the famous chapter in the Bible, love is patient, love is kind. So Paul is just talking all about love, and he kind of switches topic a little bit, but he's still in the conversation about love. So this is what he says. It's 1 Corinthians 14, 1 through 5. Let love be your highest goal. So he's reminding them, like, we're still talking about love. You still have to do everything with love. Love is the most important thing. He continues, but you should also desire the special abilities the Spirit gives, especially the ability to prophesy. For if you have the ability to speak in tongues, you will be talking only to God, since people won't be able to understand you. You will be speaking by the power of the Spirit, but it will all be mysterious. But one who prophesies strengthens others, encourages them, and comforts them. A person who speaks in tongues is strengthened personally, but one who speaks a word of prophecy strengthens the entire church. I wish you all could speak in tongues, but even more, I wish you all could prophesy. For prophecy is greater than speaking in tongues. Now let's break this down, because I know you might be like, prophecy, tongues, like what does this have to do with encouragement? But I think most of us don't really have a proper understanding of what it means to prophesy, to what prophecy actually means. You might just like have no clue. You might be like, I don't know, it sounds creepy, it sounds weird. Or you might think like it's telling the future. I think that's what a lot of people think prophecy means. But Paul is defining it for us. Paul is defining what local church prophecy is. And it's exactly what he said. It's upbuilding, it's encouragement, and it's consolation. And a really easy way to say it and remember it is basically it's to build up, to stir up, and to cheer up. I stole that from another pastor, no shame. It's really easy to remember, and I feel like it'll stick in your head. It's to build up, stir up, and cheer up. And so Paul says to prophesy in the church, it's first of all to strengthen, right? To build up. So finding someone who you can build up in your faith, maybe somebody who's not as far along as you, maybe someone who's struggling, finding someone to build up and strengthen. It's encouraging someone or stirring up something inside of them, stirring up what are their passions, what are their giftings, what are their callings in their walk with Jesus. And then it's to comfort or cheer up. And this can literally be as simple as smiling at someone, giving a hug to someone, giving a kind word to someone. It's really all very simple. It's stuff that all of us can do. And all of us should want to do this, as Paul was kind of urging us that, man, you should desire to do this in the church. The only thing that it requires of us is that we actually look up from ourselves and look around at other people. We actually have to pay attention to other people. We actually have to be aware of the people who God has put around us. But I don't think many of us, if I asked you, like, what do you desire the most from God? I don't think many of us would say to prophesy. I don't think that's on many of our radars, but Paul says that we should. This should be something that we deeply desire to do by the power of the Holy Spirit. So that's what we want to seek to do. As Paul says, it's very important. We should desire this. So love should be our highest goal, as he says, but after that, we should desire to prophesy to other people, to build up, to stir up, to cheer up, to encourage the people that are around us. And Paul says, if we learn to do this, that we can strengthen the entire church, right? That's what he says. If you can speak in tongues, you strengthen yourself personally, which is good, but it's even better if you can speak a word to someone else, strengthen them, you can actually strengthen the entire church. And of course, I would add, the entire church could also be your family, your marriage, the people that are around you. You can strengthen all the relationships that you have around you. It says this in Ephesians 4:29, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. That is a challenging verse, is it not? Everything you say should be good and helpful, so that our words can be an encouragement to others, so that our words can build people up, they can stir people up, they can cheer people up. So Paul says that we should do this, but I just want to spend another minute thinking about why. Like, why is this so important that we do this? Why, as Christians specifically, why is this important for us to do? Why are we supposed to desire this? And I didn't add them because there's so many, but why are we instructed to do it so many times throughout the New Testament? We're constantly told to encourage others, encourage the people around you. Why? Well, number one is that life is hard. The Christian life is really hard. As humans, as followers of Jesus, we get weary and we need encouragement. We go through hard seasons in our life where we lose faith and we lose hope, and we just need that courage to just keep going. Without encouragement, we can feel overwhelmed, we can feel unloved, we can feel burdened. We need encouragement from others to remind us that we're loved, to remind us that God is with us, to remind us that it's worth it. It's a struggle, but it's going to be worth it. We all need encouragement. The Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., it has a display of the things that were on Abraham Lincoln the night he was assassinated. And one of the things that was in his pocket the night that he was killed is a worn out newspaper clipping that was all folded up. And when you unfold it, it says, "Abraham Lincoln is one of the greatest statesmen of all time." So even Abraham Lincoln, one of the most loved presidents of all time, he needed encouragement. He needed that in his pocket. He no doubt took that out and looked at it. He needed those encouraging words to keep him going. A simple, kind word or word of encouragement can make all the difference to someone. You know, we talked about that a lot the first week, that our words have this ability to stick with people for years to come. Encouragement is really a superpower. It can light people up. It can give them hope. It can give them courage that they didn't have before. I want to read you this quote by William Barclay. He's a really well-known theologian, and he says this: one of the highest human duties is the duty of encouragement. It's easy to laugh at men's ideals. It is easy to pour cold water on their enthusiasm. It is easy to discourage others. The world is full of discouragers. We have a Christian duty to encourage one another. Many a time, a word of praise or thanks or appreciation or cheer has kept a man on his feet. Blessed is the man or woman who speaks such a word. The world is full of discouragers. Have you noticed that? But we don't have to be one of those people. We can be encouragers instead. So specifically as women, I just want to talk about for a minute, like, who can we encourage? Who specifically as women do we have the opportunity to encourage? And I just want to highlight a few different areas. The first is friends, our sisters in Christ, other believers, the people that you're sitting at the table with right now. It says this in Hebrews 10, 24 through 25. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. So this is why it is so important and so great that you guys are here, that you are in community with other people, that you're making relationships with other people, because it's our job, it's our Christian duty to encourage one another, to motivate each other to good works, and to cheer each other on. We have to encourage each other to just keep walking, keep fighting, keep staying faithful in your marriage, keep paying off debt, keep reading your Bible, keep praying even though you haven't received an answer yet. But we can't encourage each other if we're not involved in each other's lives. This is why it's so important to have people who know you, to have other Christian friends who know your life so they can encourage you. Because if no one knows you, no one knows your situation, no one knows what's going on in your life, no one's going to be able to encourage you. And if you cut yourself off from others, there's a good chance you're not going to have the courage that you need to keep going when things get tough, when you get discouraged. So we have to stay in community, and we have to take that duty seriously to encourage each other. Now, the second area that we can encourage is children. If you are blessed with children or with grandchildren, this is especially important. But even if you aren't or aren't yet, obviously most of us interact with children in some way. Maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're an aunt, maybe you're a coach, maybe you serve and ask kids. And so this is important for all of us to think about. Studies show that for every negative word spoken to a child, it takes 5 to 7 positive words to neutralize it, to balance it out. Now, at the same time, studies show that in the average household, 10 negative comments are said to a child for every 1 positive comment. So it's no wonder that kids can end up discouraged. Kids can end up with low self-esteem when you think about what they hear the most often. And that's an interesting experiment you can do if you ever want to. Just ask your child this question: what do I always say to you? And see what they say. I asked my older kids that, and Levi said, put the shoes away. And I'm like, not I love you, not you're so handsome or something like that. It was put the shoes away, because that's one of his jobs. So I was like, I need to do a better job of saying those positive things. It's easy to point out what kids are doing wrong. It's easy to point out how they can improve, right? It's our job to do that. So that's not a bad thing. It's just not as natural for us to point out all the good things they do and to give them praise for all the good things that they do well. It says this in 1 Thessalonians 5:13. Encourage those who are timid. Take tender care of those who are weak. Be patient with everyone. Now, Paul was talking to adults when he wrote this. He was talking to a church, but I think that it's perfect for us as parents, as people who deal with children. Encourage them. Take tender care of them and be patient with them. It's such a good word for us as parents. So when it comes with children, we have to just decide, are we going to be a critic or are we going to be a cheerleader? Are we going to be there to point out everything that they do wrong, or are we going to be there to point out the things that they do right? Children are so sensitive to negativity and to criticism, and I'm sure all of us could recall things that people said to us as a child that were hurtful, that stuck with us for years to come. So that's why we want to make sure that we get this right, that we're using our words to heal them and not harm them. We can prophesy even to a child. We can use our words to build them up. We can use our words to stir them up, to cheer them up. So it's so important that we be encouraging to children, the children that God has put in our lives. All right, third area is husband, if you are blessed to have one. If you do not, don't check out, because you may be married in the future. So this may be good to tuck away for years to come. But it's so important that as wives who are trying to follow Jesus, try to live the Bible, the way the Bible says, that we're using our words to encourage our husbands, to build them up, and not using our words to tear them down. You might think, oh, it doesn't mean much coming from me. I've been with him so long, like it doesn't even matter. No, it does. That's why it matters, because you know him better than anyone else in the world. You are the one who's closest to him, who knows all his failures, who knows all of his flaws and his insecurities. So I would say it actually has to come from you. Because you know all those things, it means that much more coming from you. That's actually what makes it so powerful. As wives, we have the power to call out greatness or magnify weakness in our husbands. You can make him feel like a success. You can make him feel like a failure. Your husband needs encouragement, and I would even say he needs encouragement daily. And I want to just share a couple simple ways that you can do this. One is just acknowledge what he does. Most of our husbands work really hard. They provide for us. They provide for our families. They keep the car running. They change light bulbs, right? They keep the yard mowed, things like that. One simple way to encourage them is just to acknowledge what they do and to say thank you. Shanti Feldhahn wrote this book called For Women Only, and she did a ton of research between men and women and husbands and wives, and just tons and tons of research. And this was one of her findings, which is really surprising to me. She said, a woman saying thank you to her man is the emotional equivalent to him saying, I love you to her. Now, obviously, we're so different as men and women. And I don't think that most of us realize how much a thank you from us means to our husbands, how impactful just a simple thank you could be. Thank you means so much to him. Thank you for providing for us. Thank you for changing the baby's diaper. Thank you for changing the oil in the car. Thank you for mowing the lawn. Thank you for taking out the garbage, etc. Now, I know somebody's thinking, well, no one thanks me. Nobody says thank you to me for everything I do. I do a lot of stuff too. Yes, I know. But the more you model a spirit of gratitude in your house, maybe other people will follow your example and follow suit and follow after you. If you start saying thank you for the simplest things, maybe it'll rub off on other people, and maybe the spirit of gratitude will spread in your house. If you wait, though, till someone thanks you or for him to thank you, you might be waiting a long time and it might never happen. So why don't you go ahead and be first? You be the first one to lead in this area. You say thank you, knowing that it's powerful to him. It's just like him saying, I love you to you. That's how powerful it can be. You might have no idea how much it would mean to him. The second is just to cheer him on. Like I said earlier, we all need encouragement, and our husbands are no different. Encouragement, it's like this superpower. We can literally put courage in to our husbands that can give them the strength to keep going another day, another week, another month. So find something that he does really well and tell him that he does it well, or find something he's insecure about and try to build him up in that area. Encourage him as a dad. Encourage him in his job. Encourage him as the leader of your household. Find your phrases, whatever sticks, whatever fits for your relationship. Obviously, we're all so different, but find phrases that you can say to him. I believe in you. You have what it takes. I'm so proud of you. You're so great at that. Whatever you feel about him, find those encouraging phrases and tell him. I'm sure we've all heard the statement, happy wife, happy life, right? Now, it is a true statement, but maybe not in the way that you're thinking of it in. It shouldn't mean, you better keep me happy or I'm gonna make your life miserable, okay? But the truth in that statement is that men do judge their success as a husband on the happiness of their wives. So if we aren't happy, if we're always miserable, if we're always complaining, they will feel like a failure. So we can encourage them by just being happy and just by letting them know we're happy. You can say things like, I love our life. I love our family. I know our house isn't perfect, but I love our house. And I love, that we get to live here together. Telling him those things will make him feel encouraged and can actually make him feel like a success as a man. Because when we're happy, it's true, like happy wife, happy life. He's gonna feel like he is a success. So don't hold back in this area. Build up your husband with encouragement. If you don't have a habit of doing this yet, start. If you're still married, it's not too late. Just start doing it tomorrow. And just watch how your marriage can transform. Like we said, speaking those words of life, watching life come in to maybe areas of your relationships that are kind of dead. Leave him a note in his drawer, or his lunchbox. Send him a text during the day unexpectedly. When he comes home, give him a hug. Tell him thank you for working hard for us. It is your superpower as a wife. So try it out, see if it makes a difference, and watch how your marriage might begin to change in a positive way. So those are some relationships that we can speak into. But I wanted to end by just identifying a few lies that I think stop us so often from encouraging other people. And I want to identify these because the next time they pop into your head, you can just squash them and just push them out of your head, and you can go ahead and encourage someone. So the first one is they already know. I think sometimes that can come in our head. They already know. This one sneaks in with the people who we're most familiar with. You might think, my husband already knows I think he's a good dad. I've told him. My kids already know I think they're smart. I think they're great. My friends already know I love them. I don't need to tell them anymore. They already know I don't need to constantly tell them. But think about it. Is that how you want to be treated? Do you want your husband to be like, she already knows I think she's pretty, I don't need to tell her? We all like receiving kind words. We all like receiving words of encouragement. I don't ever get tired of hearing my family say that they love me or that they enjoy spending time with me, things like that. So just because we've said it a few times or even 100 times, it doesn't make it void. Saying the same encouraging things don't make them less valuable, and they don't make them less true. Plus, wouldn't you have the people around you be sick of your encouragement rather than starved for your encouragement? My guess is that most of us, we probably encourage too little rather than too much. So even if they already know it, even if you said it a lot of times, just go ahead and say it again. The second one is they hear it all the time. And this might be one that affects you more in like friendships or somebody you don't know as well, somebody you see at church. And you might have a thought that, oh man, that person is pretty, that person is gifted. Oh, they're so good at that. But you might think, oh, they hear it all the time. I'm not going to tell them. They probably hear it from other people all the time. Do you guys know Josh Woods? I think everybody knows Josh Woods. I want to tell you a story about him. If you don't, long beard on the worship team. He's our worship coordinator. And he's been with our church for a long time. So this probably happened about 8 or 9 years ago. And I was, at the time, like leading groups for our church. And I was trying to get people to be in small groups. And so I would go on stage and like basically just pitch groups, try to get people to join. And it was after one of these Sundays when I did this, Josh came up to me afterwards and he said, I know you probably hear this all the time, but you are a really good public speaker. And whenever you go up to talk about groups, you always like make everybody want to join. Like you're so convincing, like we just all want to join groups. Well, I can tell you, I did not hear that all the time, if ever at that point. But his words were such an encouragement to me because I wouldn't consider myself like naturally a good public speaker. And it's taken me a lot of years to even get comfortable with it. So I remember him telling me that still. And I remember how I felt so encouraged by it that he told me like, you're such a good public speaker. It like really stood out to me like, oh my gosh, I can't believe somebody would think that. So if you see someone who's talented, who's gifted, who's doing a good job, tell them. If you see a person who works with kids and they do really well with kids, tell them. If you see somebody who's leading worship and you think they do a really good job with worship, tell them. If you see someone and their presence just encourages you, they're just a joyful person, just tell them. You have no idea the impact that just a kind word, just an encouraging word could have on somebody. I think we'd be surprised in most cases how little people hear those good things actually, because we think, oh, they hear it all the time. I think they probably don't hear it all the time. So why don't you be the one to tell them? And even if they do hear it all the time, what's it going to hurt? Just tell them anyway. This is a great rule for encouragement. It's something that I try to remember, and it's this. If you think something good, say it. Why would you rob someone of an encouraging word? Why would you rob someone of a positive thought? Let's be honest, we have enough negative thoughts about people all the time. If you have a positive one come in your head, speak it. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't think, oh, they probably hear it all the time. I'm not going to tell them. Speak it out. As I shared with Josh, I don't think at that point I had many or any people tell me that I was a good public speaker. So I'm so glad that he didn't let that stop him from giving me that word of encouragement, because at the time I desperately needed it. And obviously I still remember it, even though it was like 9 years later and it was like a conversation after church. I still remember it. It stuck with me all this time. So make sure you don't let that hold you back. All right, the third one is I'm going to give them a big head. Okay, so I just heard someone say this the other day, so I had to tell you this story. She said it was okay if I shared this. So my friend had shared how she gave someone else in our church a compliment. And it was just a simple, kind word, just a really nice compliment that she told him. And then a few weeks later, it kind of came back up in conversation, and he said, I've been living off that comment for weeks. And my friend said, oh no, I knew I was gonna give him a big head. I shouldn't have said that. And I think that's what a lot of us fear with encouragement, whether we would admit it or not. I think even like with our spouse or just our friends, other people we know, we kind of fear like we're gonna give them a big head. We fear we're going to give him a big ego. If I start telling him how great he is all the time, he's going to get puffed up and, get a huge head. But I would argue most people are deeply insecure. Even the ones who put on a really confident front usually are still deeply insecure inside. Deep down, they struggle with who they are, if they measure up, if they're really, as great as they project they are or whatever. A kind or encouraging word is not going to give them a big head. And that comment, it actually makes me choked up if I think about it, when he said, I've been living off that comment for weeks. A word of encouragement can literally give you courage, give you a fresh energy, hope to get through weeks. It's amazing what encouragement can do. They're not going to get a big head. They're going to be built up. They're going to be built up in their identity in Christ. They're going to be built up knowing that somebody's behind them. Somebody is in their corner. You're not puffing them up. You're building them up. So if you hear any of these things in your head going forward, or maybe you never even realized that you let these things hold you back from encouraging, go ahead and just squash them. Don't let these lies hold you back from speaking a word of encouragement, because you might not know how desperately somebody needs to hear an encouraging word. So I just want to challenge you to begin to speak encouragement to those around you. Like we read in the beginning, Paul says that we should all desire this. He said, I wish all of you could do this. I wish all of you could prophesy so that you could build up, stir up, cheer up all those people around you. And this is just such an easy way to speak life into people. When we talk about speaking life into situations, I think this might be the easiest one, to just speak a kind word to someone, speak a word of encouragement, and it can bring such life into conversations, into relationships. But like I said, speak it out. Don't let it stick in your head. If you think something good, say it. And if you can't say it in the moment, or you don't want to, text it, write it out in a message, write it out in a note. You have no idea the effect that your positive words could have on someone. So start speaking encouragement and watch as life begins to break out in these relationships. Like I said, Paul said that we can strengthen the entire church if we do this. You can strengthen your friendships, your family relationships, your marriage. You can strengthen so many things by just speaking encouragement. So don't be a discourager. Choose to be an encourager and be a woman who speaks encouragement. We're going to go into our discussion time now. Last one. So these are what I want you guys to discuss. The first one is give an example of a time when someone spoke an encouraging word to you. I don't know if anything came to mind as I was talking where you thought back to a time where someone said something that really stuck with you. So maybe just go around the table and share just a time when somebody gave you an encouraging word. And then which one of the 3 lies do you believe most often? I don't know if any of those resonated with you, or if there's something else. Maybe there's something else that stops you from encouraging, but they're up there if you didn't get a chance to write them down. They already know, they hear it all the time, or I'm going to give them a big head. Which one of those stops you the most often? And then last, who do you need to start encouraging? I don't know if one of those areas that I said stood out to you as I definitely need to do a better job in this area, or maybe a specific person who needs encouragement came to your mind. But go ahead and talk through that. And let's end by just praying for each other. Again, if there's something going on in your life, if you need prayer for something, really anything, just share it with the group so that everybody can be praying for you. Like I said, it's so important that we be in community so we can encourage each other. So we're going to go ahead and end with prayer. And I'm just so happy that you guys were here for these 6 weeks. And I look forward to seeing you again whenever we start up again in the future. We'll let you know a bunch of times, but hope you have good holidays and everything if I don't get to see you guys. All right, go ahead and discuss now.